Unlock inner strength. 7 Stoic principles for life's challenges. Have you ever felt like you were being pulled in a million directions at once? Just completely overwhelmed by stress, knocked down by setbacks, and tired? So tired of feeling like the world is happening to you, instead of you moving through it with a sense of purpose and calm. I've definitely been there, more times than I'd like to admit. That feeling of being a passenger in your own life is exhausting. But what if I told you there's a 2-0-year-old mindset, an operating system for the human brain, designed to build unshakable inner strength? It's an ancient philosophy, built not for stuffy academics in ivory towers, but for real people, living in the real world and facing very real challenges. So, I decided to put it to the test. For 1 full week, I challenged myself to apply 7 ancient Stoic principles to my daily life, just to see if I could build that true mental resilience everyone talks about. What I discovered, especially about focusing on what I can control versus what I can't, completely transformed how I face adversity. It wasn't about suppressing my emotions or becoming some kind of robot. It was about understanding them, managing them, and finding a deep sense of peace right in the middle of the chaos. In this video, I'm going to share the exact 7 principles I followed, the real-world challenges I ran into, and how this ancient wisdom can help you unlock your own inner fortress of strength. Principle 1, 10. The dichotomy of control. The first and most foundational principle is what the Stoics call the dichotomy of control. The philosopher Epictetus laid it out perfectly. Some things are up to us, and some things are not. What's up to us? Our opinions, our motivations, our desires, our actions, basically, our own inner world. What's not up to us? Well, almost everything else. Other people's opinions, the economy, the weather, whether your train shows up on time, and even your own health to a large degree. The Stoic insight here is that most of our anxiety, frustration, and suffering comes from trying to control things that are fundamentally uncontrollable. My challenge for day 1 was to consciously run everything that happened through this filter. The test came way sooner than I expected. I woke up to an urgent email from a client. The tone was critical, the demands were high, and my gut reaction was a jolt of defensive anger and stress. My heart started pounding. My mind began racing with all the things I couldn't control: the client's perception, their mood, what they would ultimately decide. But then I paused. I took a breath and applied the principle. What was actually in my control right now? I couldn't control how the client felt. I couldn't control that they'd already sent the email, but I could control my response. I could control the effort I put into addressing their concerns. I could control my own professionalism. By focusing only on my actions, the overwhelming anxiety started to fade. It was replaced by a sense of calm purpose. I drafted a clear, constructive reply that focused on solutions, not on the drama. The outcome was still up in the air, but my inner peace was no longer tied to it. That shift from worrying about outcomes to focusing on your effort, that's the whole game. It's not about being passive, it's about being strategic. You stop wasting energy on the unpredictable and pour it all into what you can actually do. This one principle, if you practice it daily, can radically reduce your stress. Principle 2. Embrace adversity as growth. On day 2, I took on what I thought would be the toughest principle: embracing adversity. The Stoics didn't just put up with hardship, they saw it as an opportunity. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Think about that for a second. The obstacle isn't blocking your path. The obstacle is the path. Just like a fire turns whatever you throw into it into more flames, a resilient mind can transform challenges into fuel. My test came in the form of a personal project I'd been pouring weeks into. I hit a massive roadblock, a technical failure that wiped out hours of my work. My immediate reaction was just pure frustration. I felt defeated, and the urge to just quit for the day was huge. It felt like such a pointless setback. But then I remembered the principle. What if this wasn't a failure? What if it was a training exercise? The philosopher Seneca said that anyone who has never faced adversity is living an unfortunate life because they've never been allowed to prove themselves. This setback was my chance. It was an opportunity to practice patience, to problem solve under pressure, and to build a better system so this wouldn't happen again. I completely reframed it. Instead of thinking, I lost all that work, I started asking, what can I learn from this? How can I build it back even better? The shift was incredible. The negative energy of frustration turned into the positive energy of a new challenge. The task went from a demoralizing chore to a puzzle I actually wanted to solve. This mindset turns you from a victim of your circumstances into a student of life. Every difficulty becomes a chance to get stronger, wiser, and more resilient. Principle 3. Cultivate emotional awareness. Day 3 was all about one of the most misunderstood parts of Stoicism, how to handle your emotions. There's this common myth that Stoics are emotionless robots who just suppress everything. That couldn't be more wrong. Stoicism isn't about suppressing emotions. It's about understanding them so they don't get to control you. The goal isn't to stop feeling, it's to stop being a slave to your feelings. Seneca famously called anger a brief madness, an emotion that clouds our judgment and leads to things we almost always regret. He argued that anger isn't some involuntary reflex, it's a choice, a product of how we judge a situation. The Stoic practice is to create a little bit of space between what happens and how you react. In that space, that's where your power is. My challenge was to just observe my emotional reactions all day without immediately acting on them. I was driving to a meeting, running a little late, and another driver cut me off hard. That familiar hot flash of anger shot through me. My hand flew toward the horn, and a few choice words were already forming in my head. But I caught myself. This was the moment. I didn't pretend I wasn't angry. I acknowledged it. Okay, I'm feeling angry. Then I questioned the judgment behind it. My judgment was, that person disrespected me. Is that really true? Maybe. Or maybe they were distracted, having a horrible day, or rushing to the hospital. Does my anger actually change what happened? No. Will it get me to my meeting any faster? Definitely not. In fact, it just ruins my own peace of mind. By simply observing the emotion and questioning that first judgment, the anger lost its grip on me. It was still there, like a passing cloud, but it wasn't a storm raging inside me anymore. I chose not to honk. I chose to let it go. This practice of pausing, observing, and then choosing your response is a superpower. It gives you back the steering wheel in the moments you feel most out of control. We're about halfway through the principles that really shifted my perspective on things. If you're finding this useful and want to keep learning how to build up your own mental resilience, take a second to subscribe and hit that notification bell. It truly helps the channel, and you won't miss the final 4 principles that tie all of this together. Principle 4. Live with purpose. Day 4's principle felt a bit abstract at first. Live in harmony with nature. For the Stoics, this didn't mean you had to go camping. It meant aligning your actions with your own human nature, which they believed was naturally rational and social. It means figuring out your role in the world and then showing up to do it with integrity. For Marcus Aurelius, that meant being a good emperor. For us, it could mean being a good parent, a reliable friend, or a dedicated artist. It's about finding your purpose and letting that guide you. My challenge was to act with purpose, even in the small things. Lately, I'd been feeling disconnected from my work, just kind of going through the motions. I was letting minor annoyances and distractions steer my day. So, on day 4, I started by asking myself, why? Why am I doing this? What's the bigger purpose behind these daily tasks? I reconnected with the idea that my work, at its core, is about helping people. That became my North Star for the day. Whenever I felt my motivation dipping or caught myself mindlessly scrolling, I brought myself back to that purpose. When I started focusing on serving that purpose instead of just checking off boxes, my whole approach changed. A tedious project became a chance to deliver something valuable. A difficult conversation became an opportunity to practice empathy. Living with purpose isn't about grand, world-changing gestures. It's about infusing your everyday actions with a sense of meaning. It gives you an inner compass that keeps you pointed in the right direction, no matter how stormy life gets. Principle 5. Practice daily reflection. The Stoics were huge believers in self-examination. Seneca advised his friends to acquire something each day that will fortify you against misfortune. Principle 5, which I tackled on day 5, is all about that, creating a feedback loop for your own mind through daily reflection. It's a 2-part practice, a morning reflection to prepare for the day, and an evening review to learn from it. The morning practice is called premeditatio malorum, or the premeditation of evils. It sounds dark, I know, but it's incredibly empowering. You simply visualize the challenges you might face in the day ahead: a tough meeting, an annoying comment, a traffic jam. By mentally rehearsing these things, you prepare your mind to respond with calm and reason instead of being caught off guard. On the morning of day 5, I visualized a meeting I was nervous about. I imagined being asked a question I didn't know the answer to. I pictured that hot feeling of embarrassment. Then, I planned my Stoic response. To calmly say, I didn't have the information but would find it, and to not let that judgment of, I look like a fool, take over. The second half is the evening review. Before bed, you reflect on your day, like writing in a philosophical journal. Where did I do well? Where did I fall short of my values? Did I give in to anger or anxiety? What can I learn? This isn't about beating yourself up. It's about compassionate self-improvement. That evening, I looked back on my day. The meeting happened, and while it wasn't perfect, the morning visualization worked. I didn't panic. I stayed centered. I also made a note of a moment where I'd been impatient with a family member and thought about how I could have handled it with more kindness. This daily practice is like having your own personal coach, helping you become a stronger, better version of yourself, one day at a time. Principle 6. Love your fate. Amor fati. Day 6 brought me to a principle with a beautiful name, amor fati, or a love of fate. This is the practice of not just accepting, but embracing everything that happens in life, the good, the bad, all of it. It's the ultimate expression of letting go of what you can't change. It's about fully accepting reality exactly as it is, without wishing things were different. Now, this is incredibly hard, especially when you're facing real loss or pain. My challenge for the day was, thankfully, much smaller, but still a solid test. I got news that an opportunity I was really excited about had fallen through. It was something I had invested hope in, and my first feeling was that sharp sting of disappointment. My mind immediately went down that rabbit hole of what-ifs and if-onlys. This was the perfect moment to practice amor fati. I had to let go of that imaginary reality where I got the opportunity. That reality didn't exist. The only reality was the one I was in. The Stoic approach is to see this event not as bad, but simply as what is. It's a fact, like gravity. Fighting it is just exhausting. So, I tried to embrace it. I told myself, this happened. This is now part of my story. Maybe this setback is clearing the path for something else. By choosing to love my fate, I wasn't pretending to be happy about it. I was just accepting the entire fabric of my life, knots and all, and trusting that it's the life I'm supposed to be living. This practice frees you from the suffering that comes from resisting reality. Principle 7. Remember, we're all connected. Sympatheia. My final day was dedicated to a principle that ties all the others together so beautifully, valuing virtue and community. The Stoics called this sympatheia, the belief that all things are interconnected, woven together into one universal web. They believed our nature is social, and that a huge part of a good life is acting with kindness, justice, and compassion. This really pushes back against the idea that Stoicism is some selfish philosophy. The Stoics argued we have a duty to help others. Our inner strength isn't just for us. It's so we can be a source of strength for our community. The 4 Stoic virtues, wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance, aren't just ideals. They're practical guides for how to treat each other. My challenge for day 7 was to consciously look for small opportunities to serve others. Instead of getting wrapped up in my own goals, I made an effort to be more present with people. I took the time to really listen to a friend who was struggling without jumping in to fix it. I offered to help a colleague who was swamped, even though I was busy too. And what I found was that focusing outward had this powerful boomerang effect. It pulled me out of my own head. My personal worries just seemed to shrink. There's a deep satisfaction that comes from contributing to the well-being of others. By exercising compassion and justice, I wasn't just helping other people, I was strengthening my own character. This final principle showed me that true inner strength isn't a solitary fortress. It's a lighthouse, meant to be a beacon of support for others. Conclusion. So, what did I learn from a week of living like a Stoic? I learned that resilience isn't something you're born with. It's something you build, one conscious choice at a time. These 7 principles aren't just interesting ideas. They are practical, hands-on tools for navigating the beautiful mess of modern life. It all comes back to that first game-changing idea, the dichotomy of control. When you learn to separate what you can control from what you can't, you stop being a victim of your circumstances and start becoming the master of your own mind. When you see adversity as an opportunity, every challenge makes you stronger. When you manage your emotions, you respond with wisdom instead of impulse. When you live with purpose, act with virtue, and reflect on your days, you live a life of intention. This week-long experiment didn't magically solve all my problems. Life is still unpredictable, but my relationship with my problems has fundamentally changed. I no longer feel like a puppet dancing on the strings of external events. I feel grounded, centered, and ready to face whatever comes next with calm and courage. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey. I'm genuinely curious to hear from you. Which of these 7 principles resonated with you the most? Is there one you think you might try in your own life? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one. And if you enjoyed this video and want more practical wisdom for a better life, please like and subscribe. Until next time, be well and be strong.